There is a place between the worlds, a shimmer upon the water, a sigh upon the wind. They call it Avalon. To some, it is only a legend, a name whispered in half-forgotten songs. But to those who listen closely, who still believe that magic breathes in the quiet places of the earth, Avalon is real. When the mists rise at dawn, curling like silver threads across the still lake, the veil thins. Beyond it lies a world untouched by time, an island hidden from mortal sight. Its shores are soft with moss, its air scented with apple blossoms. And there, in that sacred silence, the priestesses of Avalon walk in white, carrying the memory of the old gods. They are the keepers of balance, between light and shadow, life and death, earth and sky. Among them once walked a woman named Morgana. She was born beneath a crescent moon, the daughter of the lake and the storm, her fate bound to the mists themselves. As the world beyond began to change, as men built kingdoms and raised their swords in the name of a single god, Avalon began to fade from their sight. But Morgana remembered. She was the bridge between what was and what would come, between the fading magic of the old world and the dawn of the new. On the morning of her initiation, the lake was still. The sun, pale and shy, lingered beyond the mist. Morgana stood upon the water's edge, her reflection trembling with the ripples. The high priestess approached her, a woman draped in white and silver, her eyes like deep wells of time. "Morgana," she said softly, "do you know what it means to walk between worlds?" Morgana bowed her head. To belong to neither fully, and yet to hold both in balance. The priestess smiled. "Then you are ready." She lifted a chalice, its surface carved with the phases of the moon. Morgana drank, and the taste of it was like memory, sweet and ancient, as though she had sipped from the dawn of the world itself. The mists began to rise, wrapping around her like living silk. She felt herself dissolve, body, thought, and breath, until there was only stillness. In that stillness, she heard the voice of the lake. "Morgana," it whispered, "you are the vessel, you are the veil. Through you Avalon shall live." When she opened her eyes, she was no longer by the shore. She stood upon the island itself. The grass shimmered with dew, and from the heart of Avalon came the song of the goddess, low, soft, and endless. That was the day Morgana became one with the mist, the beginning of her story, and the slow unraveling of all that would follow. End of Part 1. The mists of Avalon are alive. They breathe, they listen, and they remember. In every droplet that drifts across the lake, there lies the echo of an age-long past. When gods and mortals still spoke the same language, when the heartbeat of the earth pulsed through every living thing. Morgana awoke within that pulse. She opened her eyes to the soft light that filtered through the apple trees. The scent of blossoms surrounded her, sweet, fragile, eternal. Around her, the island shimmered as if half a dream. The air hummed with unseen voices, each whispering her name, each calling her deeper into the heart of Avalon. She rose, barefoot on the cool grass, and the sound of the world shifted. The birds' songs bent into melodies she could almost understand. The wind became a murmur of old stories. Every sound, every breath carried meaning. She walked until she reached the circle of stones, tall and ancient, older than any kingdom men had built. The high priestess was waiting for her, the silver crescent still glimmering upon her brow. "You have crossed the threshold," the priestess said. "Now you must learn to see not with your eyes, but with your heart." Morgana knelt before her. "Teach me." The priestess smiled, her gaze filled with patience older than the stars. "Close your eyes," she said. "Feel the world breathe." Morgane obeyed. The sound of the wind became the ocean. The hum of the air became a song, a single infinite note that vibrated through her bones. She felt herself stretch beyond her skin, beyond her thoughts, until she was the mist itself. She was the water and the air, the silence and the song. And in that boundless space she saw the threads of fate, shining and endless, weaving through the hearts of men and gods alike. She saw the old gods retreating into the shadow as the world's belief in them waned. She saw a king with a golden crown rising from the west, his destiny bound to both the sword and the lake. She saw the fall of kingdoms, the shattering of faith, and through it all Avalon, fading yet eternal. When Morgane opened her eyes, tears traced her cheeks. The priestess placed a hand upon her heart. "What did you see?" "The end of one world," Morgane whispered, "and the beginning of another." The priestess nodded slowly. "Then you understand why we remain. We are not the past, Morgane. We are the breath between moments, the stillness before dawn. So long as there is mist upon the water, Avalon shall never die." That night, Morgane stood upon the shore once more. The stars shimmered above her, mirrored in the still lake below. The air was thick with the scent of apple and rain. She raised her hands and called to the goddess, not in words, but in the language of the heart. The water rippled. A faint light bloomed beneath the surface, and from it rose a shape, a woman made of moonlight, her hair flowing like the tides, her eyes deep as eternity. "Morgane," the goddess said, "you are the bridge. Through you, the memory of Avalon will pass into the world of men. Guard it well, for the day will come when the veil shall tremble, and faith shall be tested." The vision faded, leaving only the reflection of the stars. Yet the echo of that voice remained within her, soft as breath, eternal as water. Morgane knew then her journey had only begun. Days passed like whispers in Avalon. Time there was not measured by the sun, but by the rhythm of breath, the tide of dreams. The mist itself seemed alive, watching, remembering. It was said that the lake held every secret ever spoken beneath its surface, and that to listen closely was to hear the soul of the world. Morgane learned to listen. Each morning she sat by the shore, her reflection merging with the clouds upon the water. She no longer saw herself as she once was, a woman of flesh and blood, but as something lighter, like air woven with thought. The lake spoke in ripples, in echoes that rose and fell like a song only the heart could understand. "Why does the world beyond forget us?" she asked one day. The high priestess stood behind her, her gaze lost in the horizon. "Because they choose to," she said. "Men build walls not to keep others out, but to keep their faith contained. They fear what they cannot hold, and so they name it unreal." "But Avalon is real," Morgane whispered. "I can feel it." "Yes," said the priestess, "but faith is not feeling. Faith is remembering. When the world tries to make you forget." That night, Morgane dreamed of a man standing upon a hill of stone. His eyes burned with both sorrow and fire. In his hand he held a sword that shimmered like starlight, the blade half in shadow, half in flame. Around him, the land wept, rivers turned to mist, and forests bowed to silence. When she awoke, the dream clung to her like dew. The name lingered on her lips, though she did not know its meaning. "Arthur." The priestess found her waiting by the altar of the moon. "You have seen him," she said quietly. "The child of prophecy. the king who will bind the world of men to the dream of Avalon. For a time, Morgane's heart trembled. And what am I to him? The priestess touched her cheek. The mirror and the veil, his guide and his undoing. In the days that followed, Morgane's lessons deepened. She learned to walk upon the mist when dawn was young, to summon the light that dwelled within water. She learned the words that heal and the silence that binds them. She became the voice of the lake, the daughter of the unseen. But with each lesson came a shadow, a sense that the world beyond Avalon was shifting. The balance trembled. New faiths spread like wildfire, and the old gods retreated further into dream. The veil grew thinner. Mortals began to sense the mists, though they no longer remembered their name. One evening, as the sun bled into twilight, Morgane stood upon the island's highest hill. From there she could see the far shore, faint and ghost-like, where torches of men flickered. The world of kings and swords. The world she would one day have to enter. "Do you fear it?" a voice asked behind her. It was the priestess. Morgane nodded slowly. "I fear forgetting. I fear that once I cross, I will not remember the song of Avalon." The priestess smiled gently. "Then carry it within you. Even when your heart grows heavy with the weight of men, even when the mists are lost to sight, remember the stillness. Remember the sound beneath the silence. That is Avalon." That night, Morgane sang by the lake, a song without words, a song that rose and fell with the breath of the world. The waters glowed faintly beneath the moon, and for a moment, it seemed that Avalon itself sighed in answer. Far beyond the veil, in a mortal cradle, a child stirred. The same moonlight that touched Morgane's face brushed his brow, and though he would never remember it, the first breath of his destiny was filled with the sound of her song. Years passed like the turning of unseen stars. The mists of Avalon thickened and thinned, breathing with the heartbeat of the world. Morgane had grown into her power, a priestess of the lake, a daughter of the veil. Yet even within Avalon, time could not be held still. For beyond the mist, destiny was unfolding. The child she had seen in her dreams had grown. His name was Arthur. He was raised not by kings, but by those who guarded the secret of the lake. His laughter echoed through forests. His courage brightened even the grayest morning. Yet within him stirred something deeper, the memory of a promise he could not name. The world of men would one day rest upon his hands, and Avalon waited for the moment their paths would cross. One dawn, Morgane stood by the mirror lake, her reflection trembling with light. The high priestess joined her, her face unreadable. "The time comes," she said. "The sword must choose its bearer." Beneath the surface of the lake, light shimmered, slow, deliberate, eternal. From its depths, a shape began to rise. A hand of water, holding a blade of purest silver. It was Excalibur, forged in dream, tempered in faith, and meant for one heart alone. Morgane's breath caught. Must it be him? The priestess nodded. Only one born of both worlds can wield it. He is of Avalon and of earth, of mist and of stone. Through him, the old gods will live once more, but only for a season. As the sun rose, the mists parted for the first time in many years. A young man stood upon the far shore, strong, golden-haired, his eyes filled with wonder and fear. Morgane stepped forward, the mist swirling about her feet. "Arthur," she called softly, "do not be afraid." He looked across the shining water. "Who are you?" "I am of the lake," she said, "and I bring you what was always yours." The water trembled as she lifted her hands. The sword rose between them, gleaming like dawn made solid. For a moment, all sound ceased. No bird, no wind, no ripple dared disturb that moment. Arthur stepped forward, his eyes wide. When his fingers closed around the hilt, the world seemed to draw breath. The mist swirled around him, wrapping him in light. And in that silence, Avalon wept, for a prophecy had begun, and every prophecy demands its price. From that day, the bond between Arthur and Avalon was sealed. The sword carried both blessing and burden. Through him peace would come for a time. But as light grows brighter, so too does the shadow that follows it. In Avalon, Morgana watched the world beyond shift and turn. The mists whispered of battles not yet fought, of hearts divided, of faith tested. She saw visions of a round table, of knights bound by honor and dream. Yet she also saw betrayal and the slow fading of the mists. "Will he remember us?" she asked the lake one night. The water shimmered faintly. For a while, it answered, and then only in dreams. Morgana closed her eyes. She could already feel the distance growing, the mortal world turning toward reason and forgetting wonder. The mists that had once protected Avalon began to drift wider, weaker, their edges thinning like breath in winter. Still she waited. Still she watched. For as long as one heart remembered Avalon, it would not die. And somewhere beyond the veil, Arthur raised his sword beneath the dawn, its light catching in the mist. A promise to both worlds, fragile as hope, eternal as memory. The seasons turned, and the world of men grew restless. The mists that had once separated Avalon from the waking world began to drift apart. Sometimes, when dawn was pale and the air still, mortals could glimpse the shimmer of the island, a ghost of a dream they could no longer name. Yet few believed, and belief was the breath of Avalon. Morgana felt the change deep within her. The lake no longer sang as it once had. Its voice, once clear as moonlight, had grown faint, like a memory whispered from afar. She walked the paths of the island in silence, her fingers brushing the old stones. The priestesses still kept their rituals, still called to the goddess, but even their chants carried the echo of farewell. The high priestess had grown frail, her hair white as mist. "It is happening," Morgana said one evening. "The old ways are fading." The high priestess smiled softly, her eyes reflecting both sorrow and peace. "Everything that is born must change, even the mists. But what becomes of Avalon if no one remembers?" "Then we become the dream," the priestess answered. "And in dream we are eternal." That night, Morgana lit the sacred fire by the lake, a flame that burned without wood or wind. Its glow rippled across the water, calling to the far world beyond the veil. Somewhere, she knew Arthur's heart stirred. For though kingdoms rise and fall, there are threads that never break. She saw him in her vision, older now, burdened with the crown of men. His eyes, once filled with wonder, were heavy with grief. The sword that had shone like dawn was dimmed by blood and sorrow. He fought not only his enemies but time itself. Morgana reached out across the veil, whispering through the mist, "Remember." For a moment, the king's hand trembled upon the hilt. His gaze lifted toward the horizon, where the air shimmered faintly. He thought he saw a woman's shape, cloaked in silver, standing upon still waters. But when he blinked, she was gone, and only the faint echo of her voice remained. "Remember the stillness before dawn." Avalon wept that night. The stars themselves seemed to sink lower, their reflections lost in the trembling lake. Morgana fell to her knees by the water's edge. "If belief fades," she whispered, "then let me be its keeper. Let me remember for them all." The mist stirred, answering like breath. "So long as you remember, Avalon will live." And so she kept vigil. Seasons turned to years, years to centuries. Morgana watched kingdoms fall and rise again, their names forgotten by time. She watched new gods take form, their temples built where sacred groves once stood. Yet beneath it all, Avalon remained, hidden, waiting, dreaming. Sometimes, when the world grew too loud, a wanderer would find themselves upon a strange shore. The air would shimmer, the light would bend, and for one fleeting heartbeat, they would see it, the island beyond the veil. The scent of apple blossoms, the hush of unseen waves, the feeling that somewhere, something ancient still watched. And when they returned, they could not speak of it. For how can one describe a dream that feels more real than waking? Morgana stood among the blossoms, her hair now silver as the lake's reflection. She smiled, not with sorrow, but with quiet knowing. Avalon had not died. It had simply become what it was always meant to be. A sanctuary of the soul, a memory in the hearts of those who still dream. The lake was quiet. The mists lay heavy upon the water, silver and soft, like a breath the world had forgotten to release. Morgana stood alone at the edge, her reflection a ghost among ghosts. The time of kings had passed. The songs of Camelot were fading into silence. And Avalon waited between the heartbeats of the earth. She had seen it all, the rise and fall of empires, the shifting of stars, the slow unraveling of belief. Yet she did not despair, for she had learned that endings are not the same as death. What is remembered cannot truly fade. She closed her eyes, listening to the rhythm beneath the stillness. The pulse of Avalon was slow but steady, like the breath of a sleeping god. She knelt beside the water and placed her hand upon its surface. The lake shimmered, warm beneath her touch. "Lady of the lake," she whispered, "if I am the last, let me keep the dream." The mist stirred, curling around her fingers. From the depths, a voice rose, not of words, but of memory. It was the voice of every priestess who had walked these shores, every soul who had whispered to the water. "Morgana, daughter of the veil," it said, "you are the dream now." Tears slipped down her cheeks, falling into the lake like tiny stars. She felt herself dissolve into the mist, her body turning to light, her voice merging with the wind. The island breathed her in, as if the air itself remembered her name. Beyond the veil, far across the centuries, the stories of Avalon became legend. Some said it was a place of healing, where heroes rested after death. Others said it had vanished entirely, swallowed by the mist. But those who dreamed, truly dreamed, could still find it. On nights when the moon was low and the lake lay still, a faint song could sometimes be heard. A woman's voice, soft and clear, drifting over the water. "Sleep," it would murmur. "You are safe. You are home." And in that moment, every listener, king, wanderer, or child, would feel the warmth of an unseen shore, the scent of apple blossoms, the peace of a world untouched by time. For Avalon was never gone. It merely waits for those who remember. So if ever you find yourself at the edge of a quiet lake, and the mist begins to rise, close your eyes. Listen. The veil is thin. You may hear her voice calling softly across the water. Welcome home. End of the Mist of Avalon. Thank you for listening to Sleep with Myth. May your dreams be gentle, and your heart remember the mists.